Of course.
So we will call our January 23rd, 2025 Harbor Gateway North Planning and Land Use Committee meeting to order at 6:33 p.m. And if our secretary would take the roll call of committee.
Yes, and I'll go through every person and just reiterate whether or not they're present or not. So the chair for this committee is vacant. Rosalie Preston,
Present.
Madge Nixon, here. Craig Kusunoki,
Present.
R.V. Powell. So R.V. is not present at the moment. Janisha Robinson.
Oh, I'm here. I'm sorry.
hey, R.V. That's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
All right, RV's here. I got you.
Mhm.
Janisha Robinson. Okay, Janisha is not present. Rebecca Rodriguez. Okay, Rebecca is not present. Angela Springs. Okay, no Angela. And Luetta Watson.
Present.
Okay.
All right, at this time, if there is, if no other committee members are present, for the roll call, we'll move on to item number 2, which is general public comment on non-agenda items that are within the neighborhood council subject matter jurisdiction. Each speaker will have up to 2 minutes. So this is for items related to planning and land use that are not on our agenda. So it looks like we have 2 or 3 stakeholders present. But I do not see any hands raised. So we'll move on to item 3, which is approval of the minutes from the December 5th committee meeting.
I move that the minutes are approved as written. This is Lou Watson.
Okay, thank you. And is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, Craig Kusunoki, second.
Yes, and I can take roll. And Rosalie, remind me, should I go through every single person again, even if they're not present?
No, you don't have to do that. We
Okay.
just have to note the time within the minutes when someone, when a committee member shows up or
Okay.
leaves.
For those that are present, I'll take roll for the December 5th meeting minutes as written. Rosalie Preston,
Yes.
Madge Nixon, yes. Craig Kusunoki,
Yes.
R.V. Powell,
Yes.
and Luetta Watson.
Yes.
So that passes with 5 votes.
All right, and our next item on the agenda is item 4 regarding 700 West 120th Street. This will be an apartment building with 50 units and no parking that has already received a letter of determination, meaning a letter of approval from the Department of City Planning as an ED1 project, which comes under Mayor Bass's Executive Directive 1 to speed up the creation of housing units in the city. It also, the no parking aspect is because of a state law that was passed in the last couple of years that a lot of developers are taking advantage of, and it allows them to create more units than they normally would by using the space where parking would have been. So I did reach out to a couple of the people listed on the application, and neither one ever responded, so we do not have a presentation. And I'll provide the secretary later with the names of those two people who were emailed. Although I believe she was copied, so.
Okay, yeah, I can work with you, Rosalie, but I'll double check and see if I have that.
So moving on, because this project is, I think, the fourth such ED1 project within our neighborhood council boundaries, and there's actually another potential one coming up. All of them at least 50 units with no parking, or close to 50 units with no parking. And there's issues because with the first one, which was the one on Central Avenue, put that on here. Well, it's in the letter. The
Is
it's
that
so anyway.
1134 East 120th
East.
or?
No, it's the it's Central Avenue. It's 119, I believe, or 118 something Central Avenue. It was
Oh,
where
yeah.
there were, yeah, it was where there was a fourplex, a one-story fourplex. And we heard about that more than a year ago because of the notice of demolition, but I think that might have appeared on the early notification. I'm pretty sure that one was on an early notification. So for those who aren't familiar, when neighborhood councils were first certified, the one of the big issues that neighborhood councils wanted to work on was having input into the planning and land use process for their areas. So the Department of City Planning agreed that they would send an early notification notice, which they used to do every week or 2 weeks, and they still do, but very little appears on it anymore. And it lists all of the applications that were not by right. In the very beginning, 22 or more years ago, 23 years ago, the list was very long, but developers protested, and so different changes were made that made more of the projects by right, which means they fit within all the city Department of City Planning guidelines, the zoning, and they just went straight to the Department of Building and Safety, which has a plan check desk. But in the beginning of these ED1 projects a couple years ago, they were listed on that early notification with that designation. So they had a case number. That way you could look it up on the Department of City Planning website. You could see which planner was assigned to it and contact them to get more of an idea of the timeline for the approval. But now, in the last year, all those ED1 projects have dropped off the early notification. So that's what this draft letter is about.
If you
Because
allow
I
me
know we're,
to share my screen,
yes,
Rosalie, I can put the letter
yeah,
up for
so,
people.
so
to-
we'll review the draft. I know we're not the only neighborhood council who has concerns about the current process and the lack of ability to comment. The only developer for all of these projects who's ever shown up to one of our meetings is the one on 120th, after it was already pretty much approved, although he did seem kind of amenable to some comment. So I'll read out the letter and, make comments for improvements before we vote, and then it would be recommended for the board to approve at our February 11th board meeting. So our board voted to send this letter so it's addressed to Mayor Karen Bass, so that you and our elected council members are aware of our concerns related to the increasing number of ED1 projects within our neighborhood council area and the lack of transparency in the development process for them. To date, these are the ED1 projects that we are aware of that will be constructed within our boundaries. So includes the 700 West 120th Street with a case number, which now they're ADM, which stands for Administrative Decision. And we're not really sure what VHCA stands for, but it's something, maybe California, not sure. So that one, as we said, is 50 units, all affordable, 100% affordable, 4-story with no parking and 0 open space. And that's in our District 5. And then 624 to 626 West Imperial Highway. That one is 47, 100% affordable units, no parking and 0 open space in our District 6. 11516 South Vermont Avenue. That one I just learned about from a stakeholder. And that's this problematic parcel that was sold off by Caltrans at the time that the parcel in the Merritt tract was sold off. And I believe the same man bought it. I don't know that he still owns it, but originally he wanted to build condominiums, and it's right next to the off-ramp of the 105 freeway going west at Vermont Avenue. And it's right behind at 6 stories, it would tower over at least 10 single-family homes on 115th and also Menlo. I haven't been able to figure out a case number, but it's proposed to be 6-story with no parking. It's got some building and safety documents attached to that address. And then 1134 East 120th Street, that's the one we did hear the presentation on, 74 units, 3 stories, all 100% affordable with no parking. And I need to look back. We haven't seen a letter of determination yet for that. So maybe there really isn't one yet. We've only seen their internal documents which they have submitted to building and safety. And it's kind of hard to read to see about the open space percentage. And then the one on Central Avenue that I referred to, 11840 to 11844, and it also, I need to put in, they use some of the addresses on 119th Street. So those were all the addresses of the former 4 units of the duplex. That's the TOC stands for Transit Oriented Community, and HCA, I believe, is Housing Crisis Act, and that's like a state law. And then ED1, 69 restricted, 100% affordable units with 5 parking spaces. And that's partly because at least one is for the manager unit, and maybe there's some handicap, and a 20% reduction in required open space. So we note that currently there are 3 supportive housing developments for the formerly homeless within our boundaries, or at least we assume that's who they're intended for. And so we list those addresses, all of which we have supported. Oh, okay, we're referring to the ones that we've already supported, which are the supportive housing. So those are the ones, the 3 locations which have supportive social services on site, as well as an on-site manager. And then a Project Home Key, the Weingart Willows at 14032 South Vermont Avenue, all of which we have supported and provided comment on. All 4 of those project staff met with our Planning and Land Use Committee and listened to our concerns and suggestions, which helped to make the projects blend into the existing community. So our concerns with the current ED1 projects and their approval process are: 1, ED1 projects are now not listed on the early notification provided by the Department of City Planning per the original agreement with neighborhood councils and the department. 2, neighborhood councils only learn about ED1 projects either when the letter of determination is issued and a copy sent to us, or when a notice of demolition from the Department of Building and Safety is mailed to us, and we learn that the demolition is because a multi-unit apartment project is to be built. 3, when we have a case number for an ED1 project and type it into the case number search on the Department of City Planning website, no scanned documents show up. 4, project applicants are difficult to contact and do not return telephone calls or emails asking them to attend neighborhood council meetings to discuss their projects and receive input from the nearby community. We also would like to note that although we realize that the no parking element of ED1 projects is intended to make the projects cheaper to build with more units included, it makes the quality of life more difficult for the future tenants, at least some of whom will need to own vehicles due to the poor quality of public transportation within and near our neighborhood council area. The lack of parking will also increase tensions with the nearby residential neighborhoods where those tenants will park the vehicles that they own. Additionally, we are an area with very little open space / green space and an elevated air pollution burden due to the 91, 110, and 105 freeways and Union Pacific Railroad tracks cutting through our neighborhoods in several areas. The great reduction in green space and trees, which is approved with these ED1 projects, does a disservice to those who will live in the new buildings and to those of us living nearby, and contributes to significant detrimental impact on our health, both physical and mental. We ask that you reconsider the current exemptions allowed with ED1 projects, and where necessary, work to make changes in state laws which have required some of these exemptions. We are willing to work with you and provide any further details to assist you in reevaluating the current regulations and processes. And it would go to our 2 council members, some of their planning staff, and also Vince Bertoni, the Director of Planning for the City of LA. So any comments on
This
the
is,
letter as written?
this is minor, Rosalie, but going back up to what you have here on the central ad, you said TCA or TPA, Housing Prices Act?
Oh, TOC, that stands for Transit Oriented Communities.
Okay, and what about the next one?
HCA, I believe, is Housing Crisis Act, but I'm not positive.
Crisis.
It's something,
Crisis. Okay.
crisis, yeah. It's, I think if you type it in Google, you can See, this one on Central Avenue is the first of those ED1 projects, and so it actually has a different string of, it's not under VHCA, whatever that is. So,
I see.
yeah,
And
and TOC, those areas were created under the revision in the South LA and Southeast LA community plan updates. And they've kind of been, I don't think they put those in the community plans anymore because they have something more intense. But transit oriented meant that theoretically your building was located on a major transit corridor, but Central Avenue is not a major transit corridor by any stretch of the imagination. I think it has one regular bus going up and down there. And, the ones closer to Vermont, you could understand because they're on the Vermont bus line, and especially the one at 11516 is right near the Sea Line station. Even the one at 700 West 120th, you're within walking distance a few blocks, a couple blocks for the bus stop on the edge of Ralph's, and then maybe another couple blocks up to the Sea Line station. So, but on Central Avenue, it's just, and there's nothing, there's no amenities anywhere near there. So it's,
with the exception of the first four listed here, I guess all four of those we've sent letters in support of, or at least comment letters
no,
with our.
none of them.
So, but it says all which we have supported and provided comment on.
That's the supportive housing developments.
Okay. So this is for these projects.
So
and
this,
including the
yeah,
project.
this paragraph on the supportive housing and the project home key, that's to show that we have supported housing for the formerly homeless, and maybe we should say it low income maybe.
I guess I just want to
Formerly
make
home-
it maybe more clear. And I just misread.
Yeah.
Right. Just
So we'll think about clearer wording for that paragraph, and none of the other ones, because we couldn't get the developers except for the 1134 East 120th to come to our meetings.
right. Okay, so just to be clear, we're not in support of these, and going forward, we're concerned because we're no longer getting the early determination notices.
Yeah, it's really
and-
more, we're not exactly saying that we're not in support, but it's the process of creating these ED1 projects that we don't get notification and we don't have an opportunity for input with the project developers, which, there was a similar project. There's a similar project up in the Larchmont area that started out as an apartment building next to a single family home neighborhood, similar to the 700 West 120th. But when the developer realized, and the developer met with the neighborhood council and the nearby community and made some adjustments even to that original project. But when the developer realized that they could make it an ED1 project, they changed it, got it approved through a letter of determination, and then the neighborhood council learned about it, just like with us. And now it's like 6 stories, and more units. The design is somewhat different, so it hovers over the single-family homes to a greater degree, and there's less or almost no green space or open space. So many neighborhood councils are concerned, and we're just trying to comment basically on the process, approval process, and lack of ability to comment and even know about them until it's kind of too late. So maybe we'll reword about those others as just saying something about other projects where we have had the ability to comment in the past as an example. So Lou, you wanted to say something?
Yes, that's the same developer for 700 West 120th Street.
Say that again.
That is the same developer that Larchmont is dealing with. That is the developer for 700 West.
Oh, right, yes. That's accurate. That's how we even knew about the Larchmont process, because some of us were typing in the name of it's actually the architectural firm, and then a lot of other projects around the city show up. Okay, well, if there's no other comment, I don't know if any of the stakeholders wanted to say anything. We'll fix that one paragraph so it's less confusing, but it's basically designed, and we may not even mention those specific projects, but we'll just refer to other projects where we were notified and the applicants did attend, and we were able to have input and improve the project. Okay, so
Okay. Thank you, Rosalie. Good.
yeah, so our stakeholder, Mrs. Jackson, is wanting to make a comment.
Hi. Well, I just want to say that my son's name is Jackson. For whatever reason, his name comes up on my phone, but my name is Mrs. Bravo Atlas. So I just wanted to add, just to clarify a point about Central not being a main corridor. I grew up in the area, and I remember taking the bus when I was in college, taking it all the way to downtown, and then taking it all the way to Carson. So, for those of us that now drive, it's not like a main corridor, but some people rely on it heavily. I just wanted to make that point. And also, I'm very concerned about that building that's going up, the 700 West 120th, because I grew up in the Athens area, and I know that area also. It's pretty residential. It's not like one of those. I see a lot of single family units, single family homes. So I don't know how it's going to impact the neighborhood, especially with no parking.
Right, yes, that's why the
Yeah, well, the
neighborhood
quality of life, it's going to deteriorate for the especially for older folks. It's just not going to be a good thing. I can almost see the crime going up too. So I don't know if you want to mention that the quality of life will, be impacted for a lot of the older residents who live in the area. And I don't know if it's going to have any impact, but I just wanted to add that.
Okay, well, the neighborhood to the south of 120th they're holding meetings on the issue, and I think they're considering a lawsuit actually, but
Oh, wow.
yeah, but
Yeah, because that's a heavily residential
they're
area.
going to there may be a separate letter about that specific project, but
Got it.
this one is really not addressed to the specifics of any of those projects, except, to point out the issues with parking and the open space, so.
Got it. Okay. Well, thank you for letting me share my voice in that regard.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so if there's no other comments, do we want to have a vote on support for the edited letter to send to the full board?
Yeah, I'll make a motion, to send the edited letter to the board for vote.
I second that motion.
Oh, only the committee members can
Sorry.
can vote, so
I second the motion.
Okay, thank you,
thank
Arby.
you.
And I'll,
Okay,
run through Rosalie Preston,
yes,
Madge Nixon, yes. Sorry, 1 second. Craig Kusanuki,
Yes.
RV Powell,
Yes.
and Louetta Watson.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
okay, so Madge and I'll make the edits and then send it to the board. So Lou, did you want to say anything else about the 700 West 120th? From the standpoint of the neighborhood before we move on, or,
No.
okay. So item number 5. Update on the January, February 2005 release of the final EIR for the Prologis Vermont and Redondo project, which is a 340,298 square feet warehouse project at 15116 to 15216 South Vermont Avenue and 747 to 861 West Redondo Beach Boulevard. I did contact the city planners assigned to that case, have changed again in the last few months. Now there's 2 of them. And let me read out an email. I asked if there was any update on when the release of the final EIR would happen, and they said so one of the planners is Kirsten Turner, and I cut off the other person. So their statement is there is no update on the final EIR at this time. Projects with an EIR include neighborhood councils on mailing lists for all environmental notices related to those projects. The neighborhood council will receive notice once the final EIR is available. But actually, I was checking in with Pamela Thornton, who's the planning director for Council District 15, and she'd also been in touch with those planners. And to her, they told her that it was probably the final release would happen within the next 90 days. So that's more like 3 months. So it's more like February or March or even April possibly. So I don't think we've done much work on drafting a comment letter just to be ready then to plug in some further details from the final EIR. So we've got to start working on that. Madge created a Google Docs link, but when I was looking for it, I couldn't find it. So we'll keep working on that.
I guess, Rosalie,
And-
that's good news in the sense that they're not able to move forward. So
Right.
that's some good news, but anxiously awaiting to see that and to get going once. I'm sure their Prologis has everything lined up, ready to go as soon as that comes out, so it will be
Yes,
advantageous for us to be ready for sure.
yes, definitely.
And I'll resend you and, the Google.
Everyone,
Doc.
yeah, okay.
Yeah. No problem.
Okay, so then item number 6, the 2025 California Waste Services at 621 West 152nd Street, the Cal Recycle permit review process. I need to call David Thompson, who's the local enforcement agency representative working on this. He did send us back in late November the documents from the previous permit review, or I guess they were the finalized version. And so I have printed that if anyone else is interested. I did mark up the copy and noted some things and started to create a draft letter. And I've been involving some of the most impacted stakeholders also in that. But as I recall from the emails, David Thompson was going to send us his proposed new language in January, which hasn't happened, so I need to follow up with that. But let me just read out some of the comments that I've come up with so far. So the letter would probably start out something like this. The Harbor Gateway North Neighborhood Council has reviewed the current Cal Recycle permit from 2020 and proposed language in the 2025 permit and recommends the following conditions be imposed if California Waste Services is to continue operating.
Excuse me, Rosalie. Can Mads share screen so that we can follow along, please?
I think she doesn't have this, so let me try to pull it up here.
Yeah, it wasn't on the email, right, Rosalie? That's something else
No,
I got from
Yeah.
Mr. Thompson. Okay. Yeah, if you do want to send, if it's easier for you to send it to me, I can definitely share my screen.
okay, let's see.
So with this, Rosalie,
Okay, I just sent it.
okay. Let me pull it up. Does it have a large attachment? Oh, there it is. Okay, it just took a minute.
Yeah, right now it's a couple, or
I see one letter.
mostly, yeah, well, mostly one page, but.
Okay, let me, 1 second to get from my downloads. Okay.
One of the things I did notice when trying to do some research on the issues surrounding their operations is that for the South Coast AQMD has a number of rules that they've implemented, and one of them was the rule on the railroads that we supported. And there is a rule relating to I was looking at recycling plants, but it only applies to the those battery recycling plants on the edge of Watts. And that's because there was a lot of protests in the past, but there is nothing that I can see that exactly addresses this type of recycling, construction waste recycling facility. So that's something we're gonna have to try to work on, but that's kind of a long-term issue. So these would be some of the suggested conditions. Require that all operations take place in enclosed, ventilated buildings. The current practice of suppressing dust via misters and netting is resulting in the dust blowing onto neighboring properties and the misting water to also blow onto the properties producing mud. I should say which produces mud. Another condition, require testing of incoming loads for asbestos, fiberglass, lead paint, sewage sludge, industrial waste, medical waste, other hazardous waste, and non-approved materials by independent inspectors, because currently California Waste samples some of the loads themselves, and we just don't feel that's adequate. Another condition, require that California Waste Services street sweepers also sweep along 149th Street from Menlo Avenue to Figueroa Street at least once a week to remove the dust that has blown over the netting. And that's because in the current conditions, they are supposed to sweep their little section of Orchard Avenue. I'm trying to remember if it's daily. At one time it was twice daily, but they reduced that. And also Vermont Avenue, at one time they were Redondo Beach Boulevard, they were doing that daily, but now it's only, they do it Saturday mornings, and that's all that's required. So actually, I think we should put another condition that even the current sweeping be increased. Because there's on the south side of Redondo Beach Boulevard near Orchard, the south section of Orchard, there's an apartment building of 2 units that was purchased by new people a couple or 3 years ago, and they planted shrubs on the north side of their property next to the metal fencing to create more privacy. And when you walk there, you notice that the leaves of those plants, just like residents are talking about on 149th, and even the business people who park their cars in the parking lot to the south of California Waste Services, the type of dust on the sidewalk and on those plant leaves, I don't know, it's just very heavy and clinging. So definitely the dust is impacting more than just the street of Redondo Beach Boulevard from what blows off these trucks. And we probably should try to figure out how to get the dust in the streets and on those plants tested to see what it is. Okay, and then another condition, institute independent methods to determine the amount of debris brought in per weight each day. Because they have a certain load amount that they can take in every day in tons. And it looks like there's a lot more going in there. Another condition, online posting of documentation / paperwork from those bringing materials for recycling. That's a transparency issue. Another condition, require that all CWS trucks and trucks which bring materials for drop-off be zero emission vehicles within the next 5 years. I know at one time Eric Casper, the owner, said that he had applied for some of the grants to change out his trucks to electric, but we don't know where that stands. But a lot of other trucks are coming and going to that facility. Another condition, require filtering of all runoff before it goes into the storm drain inlets. Another condition, install CCTV time-lapse frame. This was from our technical advisor, Dr. Tom. And he always uses that technical language that maybe we can reword a bit into more understandable regular English language. But so install time-lapse motion noise activated cameras, which are connected to the main CWS office and the office of the local enforcement agency with video recorders and online public access. So that's another transparency issue. 5 to 10 cameras at the entrance, the dumping area, the sorting bay, bin storage areas, and loading for takeaway with staff to review, compile, and summarize daily reports. Another condition, prohibit operation at times when the wind is greater than 3.5 miles per hour. And RH, whatever that is less than 20%.
I think that's the relative humidity.
Oh, the humidity,
Yes.
right, that they've been referring to, yes, with the fires, yeah.
Can we go back to the one above, Rosalie, the CCTV? Do they not
Uh-huh.
have cameras now, or is it just the function of making them time lapse and having the access for public?
Right, yeah, I believe they do have some cameras, but it's for their own purposes.
Right. So I guess
It
we
isn't
could ask
really,
for
I don't think
access.
it's to document what's going on. I'd have to relook at the current permit.
Okay.
Okay, another condition, prohibition of any collection or recycling of soil at the facility, because in the current permit, it lists all kinds of things that they can recycle, and soil is not specifically mentioned, but there's some other terms that I don't know if that you know, encompasses that. And then another condition, reduce the hours of operation, which would include acceptance and processing to end at 8 p.m. Monday through Friday, at 6 p.m. on Saturday, and no hours of operation on Sundays. Now, they have something in there that, like originally when we were working on issues resulting from their operations, you know, many years ago, we learned that they have permission not only for their long operating hours, but 24 hours a day for, I think they call it maintenance or repairs. And so anytime people would report loud noises, banging after 10 o'clock, and anyone called Eric or reported to the local enforcement agency and they called back, it would, the reason would always be, oh, we were doing maintenance. So somehow I think there needs to be another condition, no maintenance, unless it's an emergency or something. So that would be another one. And then, yeah, so the final issue is the dirt, because I don't think it is permitted, but unless it comes under one of those other things, because what, you know, these trucks are doing is they're going to sites where they're excavating and then bringing it there to be sorted in case there's some valuables in it, like metals and whatever. And then it's put back in a truck and goes out. And it's those kind of loads that are contributing to the, you know, the dust impact. And, you know, Madge and I were there the day that our council member McCosker was meeting with us regarding the Prologis warehouse facility, and saw a big 18-wheeler come out of California Waste Services with a huge load of dirt, and it was uncovered, which is definitely illegal. So some of these other conditions were what Dr. Tom Williams had suggested. I don't know if some of them are repeats of other things we've already got. And for example, number 3, put soakers, misters with met data controlled. I mean, the residents are telling us that this existing soakers and misters along the screens and nets just end up blowing onto their properties where there's already dust, and therefore it creates mud. So that whole method for suppressing the dust is just not having the intended effect. That's why we're asking that everything, all the operations, should take place in enclosed sites. So any thoughts? I see that at least one of the stakeholders is present. If they have anything to add, or they can email us. We will need to get the new language that the local enforcement agency is proposing, and hold another community meeting. Most likely at Rosecrans Recreation Center.
Do we know the time frame again on this, Rosalie? Is there like a
Well,
date exactly when the
It's once the LEA releases their proposed language, then California Waste Services weighs in and the community can weigh in. And I think it's May by when the local enforcement agency sends the language to Cal Recycle.
Okay, so May or June would be when we would have like a town hall
Mm.
again?
Oh, no. We want to get the LEA to send us that language. He should have sent it already. So by early February, so we need to have another community meeting then later in February.
Okay, got it.
Because then we'll finalize our letter and, the board needs to vote on it in March, ideally. Okay, if there's no other comment. Move on to item number 7, which is reports on other planning and land use issues. So 7A. Is the update on the Garner J1 well. The stakeholder on 129th Street who's seemingly most impacted by the drilling, which seems like it's going right under her home and releasing fumes in the home that make her feel ill. That's still continuing. We're still getting complaints. A stakeholder who lives on 126th Street, about 5 houses from the well. I called him recently and he says he has smelled odors and he's seen trucks at the well, but he hasn't been able to call AQMD when he smelled those odors. I'm going to go around to the homes again on 126th and 125th and leave the flyers again, emphasizing the importance of calling to AQMD when you smell the odors and kind of stressing that it means you're being exposed to benzene and toluene and other toxic substances. I understand that our planning director, Pamela Thornton, has been in touch with CalGEM, the state agency, regarding that well. CalGEM maintains they are permitted, even though 3 different other agencies or groups have told us they are not. So now there's more than one well on that site. So I don't know if people are confusing the one that's causing the trouble, but because if it were properly permitted, there would be a map of the drilling path. And we would be able to see where the slant drilling is going, which we have a feeling is not only going south, but possibly north in different directions from that well. We're kind of looking into whether the neighborhood council should purchase some testing equipment that could be placed in homes to know if, the drilling is releasing benzene and toluene into people's homes. Is some other evidence. I did attend a meeting last Saturday of the Del Amo Action Committee, which is based down on Torrance Boulevard, just west of Vermont Avenue. And they have a lot of experience with testing for what they call volatile organic compounds, which benzene and toluene are. And they have a suggested company, so I'm gonna try to work with them to see if we can get something going. For the LA Regional Water Quality Board update, this is interesting. I have to contact the engineer who's assigned to the Pacific Electric Cord water contamination issue, because I only learned of this update because one of the neighbors in my neighborhood who lives near Orchard and 154th, which is our internal District 2, called me to say he had received this letter. So it was only mailed to residents within 500 feet, I believe, of the so-called Prologis property, which is actually not owned by them, but the Vermont Redondo Beach property where they are proposing to build their big warehouse. So, and it was kind of on, anyway, I have to ask Jeffrey Thompson why the neighborhood council didn't get this through email as his other reports have. But this one, the letter heading is Cal EPA, and this I meant to send out by email too. It has Cal EPA and also California Water Boards, the two logos at the top. And so it says December 2024 project update for the former Pacific Electric Cord facility at 747 West Redondo Beach Boulevard. This project update provides information on the current status of environmental investigations and cleanup in the general vicinity of the former Pacific Electric Cord facility, 747 West Redondo Beach Boulevard. Investigations are being conducted by APA3 Limited, which is considered the responsible party for the oversight, because they were the ones who owned the property at the time the contamination was discovered. And they are conducting the investigation under the oversight and direction of the Los Angeles Regional Water Quality Control Board. And then it goes into the history of Pacific Electric Cord manufacturing the electrical extension cords from 1961 to 2004. Copper wire and cleaning solvents were used in the manufacturing, and chemical contaminants known as volatile organic compounds leaked into the soil and groundwater beneath the site. So site investigations, well, that's interesting. That's earlier than we thought. They began in 1998. Petroleum, hydrocarbons, metals, which include chromium, nickel, and copper, PCE and TCE have been detected in soil and soil vapor. PCE and TCE have also been detected in groundwater exceeding regulatory levels. Additional investigations of soil, soil vapor, and groundwater are ongoing. Routine groundwater monitoring has been conducted at the site since 2006 and is currently conducted twice a year. 20 groundwater monitoring wells at 8 locations have been installed to monitor the groundwater plume that originates from the site, and there is a map that shows where they're located, which are mostly on the so-called warehouse site. 1, 2, 3, 6 of them are on the warehouse site. One is now located near Farmer Boys Restaurant, and one is south of Redondo Beach Boulevard into the neighborhood near 154th Street and the 110 freeway en route. The Los Angeles Water Board has required sampling of groundwater to the southeast to confirm that the extent of the groundwater plume has been defined. Preparatory work for groundwater sampling to the east of the 110 freeway is underway, with sampling anticipated in the first half of 2005. And that was something that we felt should be resolved possibly before the warehouse final EIR moves forward, because two of the existing ground monitor watering wells are located where Prologis wants to move them for their future construction. So, and then groundwater beneath the site is not being used as a source of drinking water. Public tap water is provided by the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, and they have a link to drinking water quality reports. And then a section, cleanup activities to date. In 1988, metal impacted soil was excavated from an alley outside the western side of the site in 2005. In 2005, approximately 123 tons of VOC impacted soil were excavated from beneath a former storage tank in the northwestern part of the site and transported to a permitted off-site facility. Now, that's something I think I mentioned before, is that no one in my neighborhood can ever remember tons of trucks taking 123 tons of soil off that site. And it's hard to know exactly where that, oh, I see Janisha Robinson has arrived. So that's 7:41. Anyway, we just wonder how that happened without anyone being aware of it. And where exactly from that site, because it seems to all be covered with concrete. But due to the persistence of VOCs in the soil vapor and groundwater, the LA Regional Water Board has required additional investigation of the soil near the 2005 excavation to assess whether there is remaining VOC source material not previously identified. And then evaluation of vapor intrusion. VOCs in groundwater can volatilize, allowing vapors to travel upward through the soil and potentially into indoor air in the buildings above. This process is called vapor intrusion. Recent updates to guidelines prepared by the California Environmental Protection Agency have triggered the need for additional study to reassess soil vapor conditions at and near the site. A work plan for off-site soil vapor sampling has been submitted and approved by the Los Angeles Water Board. The study will consist of the installation of soil vapor probes at 661 West Redondo Beach Boulevard. So that would be in the shopping center area, I guess, and in the neighborhood near Orchard Avenue between Redondo Beach Boulevard and 154th Street. Probes will be installed in public areas such as sidewalks, and data will be collected over 2 rounds of sampling. Sampling is anticipated to be performed in the fourth quarter 2004 and second quarter 2025. So again, that's after the time that possibly the final EIR for the warehouse would come out. The results will be evaluated for the potential risk of vapor intrusion into buildings and to determine whether additional investigation is needed. Reports are due by January 31st and July 31st, 2005 for the 2 sampling events. Okay, so just an update on that, and I will send that out to the full committee. And also to our planning director, Pamela Thornton, and our field down deputy Nicholas Chavez, because I don't know that they're aware of this latest report. Okay, and so that was B. Number C, the Weingart Willows. The project Home Key, they, as I think we noted at our last meeting, people have begun moving in. And they've set the grand opening for next Thursday, January 30th at 2:30, I believe. We were supposed to have RSVP'd by January 20th, but if you still want to go and did not RSVP, I think it's okay. The key thing is there's very little on-site parking, so ideally you would park on 140th Street to the north or in the parking in the middle of Vermont and just walk over to the site. Item D, reopening of the Arco gas station at 854 West El Segundo Boulevard. Haven't heard from the owner. RV Powell and I have noticed trucks inside the fence screening during the daytime, so it looked like they were working on things, but still we haven't heard. And now it's been over 4 years since it was most of the original structures were demolished and then finally rebuilt. On Rexford Industrial, I did email the planner from LA County. And she said, I am looking at the end of February, early March for the public hearing. We are still working on the hearing materials, but I have received clearances from the county. So once we hear, we'll alert the residents who could be impacted along the Figueroa in our Rosecrans Park or District 3 area. And on F, we've kind of covered this already. These are the ED1 projects that we're aware of. And also there's another potential one on Redondo Beach Boulevard on the south side in the 700 block where a LLC purchased 3 4-unit buildings, so that impacts 12 of the apartments and has been trying to push for the eviction of the residents. They have contacted Department of Housing and potential attorneys to try to stay in their building until the last moment. And I've left them some information on how some other similar rent-controlled apartment buildings in other parts of the city have managed to work with nonprofits to purchase their buildings from the developers and then turn them into land trust properties where the tenants then are the owners and
I think you're on mute, Rosalie.
okay. Could you hear me previously? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so on the Harbor Gateway Community Plan update, I talked with our planning director for CD15, Pamela Thornton. I had thought that our plan was being held up because of proposed amendments that included our plan, and I think it was related maybe to some of the industrial uses. But actually, it related to amendments that the council member had proposed when we were all at the hearing about a year ago. And it's to the Wilmington Harbor City part, because our two community plans are being considered at the same time, partly because the environmental review applies to both of them. So that some of you who subscribe to the agenda notifications saw that the City Council's Plum Committee is meeting. I believe was it this week or next week? But they're meeting out in Van Nuys. However, impacted stakeholders from Harbor City and Wilmington can comment virtually. So once that committee meeting takes place and they approve incorporation of those amendments, then it will move to the, I don't know if our plan still has to go to the Plum Committee. I would think so. But then maybe the two plans will go together for the environmental aspect. And then finally to the full city council. So at this point, it doesn't seem like anything will be changing, but we have to keep monitoring it. Because I know some of the industrial interests were not happy with the proposals for changing the zoning of their properties to hybrid industrial, which would allow for a lesser usage on those properties. And again, the California Waste Services and the property where Prologis would like to build their warehouse, those are being rezoned to hybrid industrial. And if that zoning had been in place 8 years ago, then the warehouse would not have been able to have proposed that use for that property. And likewise for California Waste Services, but they went in more than 20 years ago. So we'll keep everyone posted on those dates. And then H, other planning and land use issues. Can anyone think of anything else? Did any of the stakeholders have other issues they wanted to raise?
Rosalie, thank you for coming to the meeting that was held over here in Athens on the Hill, that property that they are also looking to do a executive director one project on. So I know that the community
Yes,
members.
we discussed that project earlier and noted that the community was holding meetings on it and may file a lawsuit.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and one of the stakeholders present who lives in our District 8, but had lived near the 700 West 120th, commented that she could understand the community's concerns due to the height and the parking issue, no parking, and that, you know, the existing properties to the south are all single-family homes, and even on 120th, it's, well, definitely on the north side, it's all low scale, which we managed when we were reviewing the South LA community plan during its update. We fought to keep that low scale, and which is R2 1-1. And the planners were very supportive of that. And that's why I'm curious why when you look at the south side of 120th in the Harbor Gateway Community Plan, I believe at one time it was R2-1, but now it's R2X1 or something, which is more intense development.
Right.
So, and that's what allows this ED1 project, so, which is replacing a single family home, and next to it is just a 2-story apartment building, which, you know, blends into the neighborhood much, much better.
Mm. I mean, even more than blending though, it's like the traffic. Like, how are you supposed to get out of the neighborhood to go to work, school, anything? I don't know. I don't understand.
Well, right. And I did mention that I had contacted 2 people involved in that development and emailed them to be present, and neither one responded. So at some point in the next month or so, we have an ED1 comment letter, but it's more for the whole process of the ED1 notifications, which we don't get in a clear way anymore, not until the planning department has already issued the letter of approval or letter of determination. So, but we may want to create a letter, you know, with input from the Athens on the Hill neighborhood and even the neighborhood to the north, on the north side of 120th, because that's R1 also, and any new apartment dweller, that's another place where they may try to park cars, so.
Right. It's gonna impact the whole area. There's no
Right,
way you
so
could
we
bring
may
that many
want
more
to
people.
curate a comment letter just for the
Yes.
heck of it, and also note that some of the applicants were invited and did not respond.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing else, we'll adjourn the meeting at 7:57 and meet again at the 4th Thursday of February.
All right.